Yeah, she's back with a rapey vengeance. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and joining me tonight, I have our poser extraordinaire, Nitai.
It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes.
Is this in reference to you having to turn off the AC to record?
Very much so. Very much so. It's hot. It's August.
Welcome to my world, Natai. For the last 3 years that we've been doing this podcast, I have not been able to use my AC while we've recorded at all.
Remember, I'll always bring this up, but remember Jason's fan?
Yeah.
And I can't blame him.
I feel like at some point that fan was really just another member of the podcast who just never spoke.
It was very essential.
Yes. Anyway,
Good
so
times.
you and I have gotten together tonight to we are continuing our jaunt through the Monogatari series.
Our jaunt, nice.
I have words from time to time. But yeah, so previously we had started this journey with Bakemonogatari, and we are continuing with its direct sequel, Nisemonogatari, tonight.
The horny part. Horniest?
The horn. Well, I don't know if it's the horn. Well, no, yeah, it's the horniest part of Monogatari. I was gonna say there's a couple of horny parts in season 2. But yeah, Nisemonogatari is very horny. So yeah, let's get right into it. I mean, there's not really, from the technical standpoint, there's not a whole lot to talk about with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's still Studio Shaft. It's still the project director is Akiyuki Shimbo. They did bring on Tomoyuki Izumura for this part. There's also a couple of different episode directors, I believe, that were tapped. Yukiyase and Takashi Kawabata also directed a couple of episodes.
We're still in the same hands we were left back when they made Bake, which is good.
Yeah, I
Bake
mean, the
was
music is still being done by Satoru Kosaki. This particular part, Nisemonogatari, aired during the winter 2012 season.
Damn, that was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of Nisemonogatari. Holy shit.
That's insane, whoa.
Yeah, and it only has one ED throughout the entire running of this part, I guess we'll say, and that is season. Sure, we'll go with that. Naisho no Hanashi by Claris.
A great song, just really cool, upbeat song. The visuals are again weird, and I like them. Cool designs for all the characters with this really strange and simple art style, I guess. I don't know how to explain it.
I can't tell you a little bit of trivia for you. The lyrics for the song were actually written by Ryo of Supercell.
Oh, really? It's the same guy who wrote the lyrics for the ED for Bake.
Yes, it is.
What a dude.
I did want to talk briefly, though, a technical point about the animation in this particular season, Nisemonogatari. I want to say that, there was some really good animation in Bakemonogatari.
Oh, yeah.
But it definitely seems like they went one notch higher in Nise.
So, Bake exploded when it came out, especially in Japan. I don't know how much of that led to, Nise having such incredible animation, but it's they just flex on you from time to time for very, very specific scenes, and just really these splashes of awesome animation that pops up, not necessarily even for fight scenes, just characters interacting between them. It's awesome. It's strange, but it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wonders, did Shaft go in knowing that Bake, or expecting that Bake was going to be a success? Because I think they thought it was going to be kind of successful, but I don't think they realized how successful exactly it was going to be. And that may be why they got a bigger budget for Nise than they did with Bake.
Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, obviously, Bake, only thanks to the anime, the novels exploded as well in the West. I have a feeling that they weren't that big. And no one knew of it, especially. But I do wonder how big were the novels before the anime in Japan, But it's an interesting question.
I think they were relatively successful, but they weren't like, popping off, so to speak. I will say, like, in the West at least, we haven't officially, in big air quotes, gotten the novels until relatively recently. In fact, was it late 2016, early 2017 is when we first got the novel, the official English translation for Nisemonogatari.
Which, by the way, huge shout outs to that publication, because they've been like handling that terrifically in terms of like the translation.
Yes, they have. Vertical.
Vertical have been doing an awesome job with the books.
Vertical has been doing it. I cannot praise them enough for how well they have done with their releases of the Monogatari light novels in English.
Because
not only are they very well translated, but you also have great new cover art from Vofon.
And like
the goat,
and we almost have all of them translated so far. I mean, we have all first, second, and final season translated.
We have all the stuff from first, second, and final season. Yeah, the only things that we don't have translated yet, at least officially in English, are the off-season light novels and the monster season light novels.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll get there.
Yes, we are. This is not a light novel, a Monogatari light novel Spoilercast. We're here to talk about Nisemonogatari, the anime. And so the anime adaptation for Nisemonogatari is broken up into two parts: Karen B and Tsukihi Phoenix. Karen B is the first 7 episodes of this particular part, and it actually has arc. 2 different.
Yeah.
Huh?
It's the longest arc we've had and will have, I think.
I believe you're right about it. I think it is the longest single arc in the entire Monogatari series, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is the single longest story arc, yeah. This particular part, or story arc, does have 2 OPs. The first one is actually sung by Chiyo Saito, who is Hitagi's voice actor. It is called
Fuka Kotome.
Fuka Kotome.
There you go.
And the second OP is probably the more famous one. There's a lot of people that probably think back and is like, no, Nise only has 2 OPs. No, it actually has 3.
Yeah, shocking.
The second OP for this particular story arc is Marshmallow Justice, which is sung by Eri Kitamura, who is the voice actor for Karen.
What a great OP. Like, visually
it is.
as well.
Both of these are really good OPs, by the way. I like how with the first OP, which you get, I think is in the first and third episodes.
Yeah, first and third episodes, I think.
Yeah. I know you get it twice. I can't remember exactly which episodes off the top of my head, and I just watched this, so I should know. I like how the art of that OP is literally just scenes from Bakemonogatari that are just like wireframe animated.
It looks really cool. But I think out of the 2, I think visually, like, I love the song from the first OP, but Marshmallow Justice, the animation is just so smooth and clean. I love the transition of how, like, Karen turns into this fire and into this, like, group of bees, and it's like the transformations and transitions between those sequences looks so good.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning that I know you and I kind of went back and forth with this a little bit before we started. Like, this also is like I'll say the reintroduction of both Karen and Tsukihi, Koyomi's sisters. Now, yes, they were introduced in Bakemonogatari, but we knew very little about them. We knew their names, we knew what they looked like, but.
And we had a bit of interaction between them, just a bit.
Very, very, very small interaction. You didn't really get a great sense of who these characters were in Bake, but in this part, you really do. So I like to say that they're reintroduced in Nisemonogatari.
And oh boy, do they introduce themselves quite in a flashy way.
Yes, but let's get into the actual episodes, the meat of the episodes themselves. So, the first episode of Nisemonogatari opens with a bit of a shocking scene. With
I mean, shocking. You will
Koyomi
say. I will say pleasing, but sure.
Okay, but with Koyomi getting quote unquote arrested by Hitagi. Now, if you watched Bake and you saw how that ended, and then you immediately start with the first episode of Nise, this might be a slightly shocking start to this episode.
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere and it just happens, and you don't even get an explanation for quite some time because it's literally just them bullshitting each other for like 10 minutes or so. And it's great. I love it.
Yeah, and she's essentially like just teasing him the whole time.
It's just like, oh, you're thirsty.
I love it.
Oh, hold on. Let me get you something to drink. And she just pours like one drop of water.
Yeah. I mean, later on, you realize that this is actually taking place ahead of time in the story.
Yeah.
Which is great from a writing standpoint, like brilliant.
Yeah.
Like this was obviously meant to hook the people watching it and to like keep it going, and what a job it does at doing that.
And it's a good hook because for the first 2 episodes, not a whole lot of events happen. You know,
it's a lot of bullshitting.
It's a lot of
just characters bullshitting.
Yeah, Niso really likes to take his time and sort of like gets you and like get you sort of into this sort of state of like, oh, okay, I'm just watching these characters talk to each other, nothing really important. And then he sort of like slams the sort of the premise of the arc right when you least expect it. And he does that to an extreme in Nise when it's like it takes like 2 episodes before we are introduced to a certain character, which we'll get to soon. But yeah.
And it all kind of plays into the actual title for this season as well, Nisemonogatari. Nisemono means fake.
Yeah.
So I mean,
fake story.
That plays. That it literally, the title literally means fake story, and it plays so much into everything that happens in this arc, or in this season, I guess.
But I do like a lot of the bullshitting that occurs. I mean, so again, for the first episode, it's Aragi and Sojigahara just talking, and he's like trying to get information out of her, like what's going on. It's like them like teasing each other and like still like, you know, in that same dynamic we saw in Bake, but just like there's much more affection there between them, which I love, absolutely love it. But then you get to his conversation with Hachikuji, where they shift gears and talk about how she's surprised that he is dating Hanakawa, which you and I talked about it a lot. But when we'll get to Kizu when we get to Kizu. But for the longest time, it seems like the story as a whole is positioning Hanakawa as the main girl, right, for Aragi. And I like how Hachikuji is sort of like, is maybe Niso is in acknowledging that. Maybe it's like answering that question, like, how come they aren't together? And then Aragi is like, oh yeah, I could never date Hanakawa, even though, I mean, she is Hanakawa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
it's an interesting question.
There's a part of me. There's always a part of me that's wondered, like, what exactly is their relationship between Koyomi and Hanakawa? Because, like, they're obviously really good friends. Yeah. Right? And you kind of wonder how that came to be. And obviously, when we get to Kizu, you'll see how that came to be. But yeah, it's a thread that until you actually see Kizu, you always wonder, like, yeah, obviously they're really great friends and they care about each other a great deal, but, and you know, there's obviously this one-sided relationship or one-sided love that Hanakawa has for Koyomi, but you always wonder, like, how did they get to this point? Yeah, and that's the great thing about Nise. It's like, you know, you'll find out. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's cool that it seems like, and it's a fun conversation. I mean, again, like Hachikuji and Aragi's dynamic is stupid to say the least, but it's super entertaining.
We're also like properly introduced to I'd like to say that past the whole Sojigahara arresting Hitagi thing, the rest of the first 2 episodes plays out like Koyomi Araragi's fucking day off, like he's Ferris Bueller, and he's just going around.
Literally starts off as, I guess I am not tutored by Hanakawa today. Well, I guess I'll go meet girls.
Yeah, I guess I go meet all these girls that I've totally not want to be in relationships with. But he also, on his day off, finds his sister Karen just casually doing handstands down the road. It's fine.
Yeah, it's just chilling. That's totally cool, I guess.
But you're definitely introduced to her. Like she has this particular sense of justice, and she's very, very definitely the quintessential definition of a tomboy. Like she's really into sports. She does martial arts. She doesn't really care that much about her outward appearance. She wears very boyish clothes.
Yeah, it's great. She's just really energetic and really, I mean, to some extent, has this very naive sense of justice. I mean, throughout this arc, Koyomi talks about how she might be. How did he say it? She might be right, but she's not strong, because that sense of justice might be like there's something to it, but it's kind of there's something childish and maybe even fake about it. And that whole question, yeah, I know, right? And that whole question of fake and what is fake and what is real and what is fake, even though it thinks that it's real. That whole question is something that I think is what makes Nisei so fun to talk about. But
yeah, I also like the fact that when he meets Karen, she says like when he asks her what are you doing, it's like community service, and like and the way she says it, it's like no, you're clearly not a bitch, but
yeah, their dynamic is really fun. And then where does he go from there?
Well, he goes to Nadeko's house.
By the way. Before he goes to Nadeko's house, we get to see his interaction with his younger sister, Tsukihi.
That's true.
I love how she, very succinctly, we know, like, we are introduced to her and we straight up know, okay, while Araragi is dense as fuck, Tsuki is very much aware of, like, people's emotions and, like, sort of connections to each other, because he's like, yeah, I guess I'll go meet Nadeko. Do you want to come? And she's like, I don't think she'll appreciate me coming over with you. And it's like, oh, what? Really? Why is that? Because Araki is stupid and dense as fuck. And so I love that they introduced that element of Tsuki, because
for sure. But should we talk about Nadeko, because she's back? She was one of the girls that got the least amount of screen time in Bake, I would say. At least of the ones that were introduced thus far.
And now she's back with vengeance.
And yeah, she's back with a rapey vengeance. I forgot, because it had been several years since I had rewatched Nisemonogatari at this point. I forgot just how rapey this part is.
I know, right? She's like very aggressive, and Aragi is, as usual, dense and dumb about it because he's like, "Oh, I'll go." I feel
like even if he acknowledged it internally, he would instinctively reject her advances because he's dating Hitagi.
And Hitagi will kill Nadeko if he does anything.
Also, she's way too young for him.
Very much, but yeah, Nadeko is.
Although that's never stopped Koyomi in the past. Let's be honest. Right?
But she's aggressive in this episode. She's aggressive.
Super sexually aggressive towards him, and she's like constantly like trying to flash tits and ass at him.
And he's like, he's not fazed by it. He doesn't see it. He doesn't see her to some extent. I mean,
he does. To Koyomi's credit, he internally addresses it. Like he knows that she's trying to like show off her body to him, and he's like, "I'm not going to be swayed by this."
And then they go on to play some games, and then they play Twister. But oh no, my parents are home. Run away, Koyomi. It's like, whew.
I also like that when that happens, when that happens, you immediately cut to her like in a fucking cowgirl position on top of him, as if she's fucking riding his dick.
What the fuck?
Oh, I also want to point out in this, there's two great elements of foreshadowing. So Nadeko uses the phrase "the final boss" when she's describing herself.
No. That's was that Nadeko? I think it was someone else.
It may have been Koyomi. Now that I think about it, one of those two uses the phrase "the final boss" while they're talking to each other.
I think it was Tsuki who referred to as the final boss. already managed to.
Anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, someone is referring to her as the final
The point
boss
is,
for some
someone
reason.
uses that phrase, the final boss, while they're referring to Nadeko. And, and like, if you know what comes at the end of second season, like,
It's
that's some
wild.
great foreshadowing.
Also, for some reasons, she's super fidgety about her closet.
Yes, and that's also some great foreshadowing.
But then he moves on to the next girl, Kanbaru.
Yeah, he moves on to the next girl on his day off. He goes to see Kanbaru, and she's a fucking pervert, as usual. Bless Kanbaru.
Her dynamic with Araragi is so, like, there's something so, like, because she is just so over the top with her sexuality and perverseness, right?
Yeah,
and
perversion.
perversion, yeah, and that's wild because Aragi is a pervert. I mean, people joke about it all the time, but she just takes it like to the next level. And I love that one bit where she's pretty much like giving him the hachikuji treatment, where she just gropes him all over. It's like, from this day on, I will never grope hachikuji again.
Lies and deceit.
Lies and deceit.
You lie as you breathe.
I mean, but
In the words
at the
of
moment,
Risu, you lie as you breathe.
lie as you breathe. But in the moment, you believe him for a bit. But yeah,
Yeah,
he
you
comes
believe
over to
him for a
place.
moment. I know there's a fan theory that she actually gives him a hand job. That's why he has that like PTSD moment.
You would like that to be true.
Listen, it's a fan theory. I kind of stand by it, to be honest. It seems like something that Kanbaru would do.
I'm sure there's a doujinshi somewhere.
But no. So I wanted to point this out. Like personality wise, Kanbaru and Koyomi are very, very similar. Right? They're both perverts.
Yeah,
They're both
very
insanely
much.
perverted people. The difference is that Kanbaru does it in public. Like, she'll be perverted in public and she doesn't give a fuck.
She literally just walks around
Koyomi-
the house naked, yeah.
Yeah, and Koyomi will, occasionally he has his bouts in public where he slips into his perversion, but a vast majority of his perversion is just in his head.
Yeah. Which leads to the
I know,
really
that's
fun
the difference.
dynamic between the two, because like to some extent he gets her, but he's like, whoa, hold on, bitch. Just a minute.
He gets her, but he won't acknowledge her because of her perversion.
I love how when they clean the house and there's a bunch of BL stuff lying around.
Yeah, for someone who claims to be a lesbian, she sure likes dick a lot.
Yeah, it is what it is. And then again, it's just a lot of shit talking. But the interesting thing happens when he leaves the house, and we are introduced.
Yeah, in
to,
episode 3, he leaves the house, and what happens, Natai?
we see
Best
him,
girl.
the best of the best, the greatest man to ever live, the best girl to ever live. Kaiki Deishu appears. And what a great
Now,
introduction.
I wanted to talk about this in particular because, you and I have talked about it in not just in Monogatari, but in multiple anime, manga, what have you, the importance of character introductions, right? Because that's your first impression of this character. You only get one chance to do it right. I cannot, for the life of me, imagine a way to do the Kaiki introduction any better than it is.
I know, right? Like the fucking dead trees and the red lighting in the scene and the music. Dude.
And just the voice. Kaiki's voice is just so ominous, and they use that word so many times to describe him. Like when Koyomi's describing him, to Hitagi, and when he's just describing him in general, he uses that word ominous. By the way, that is the actual title of Kaiki's character theme, ominous.
And again, I can't stress this enough. It's one of my favorite character themes ever. It's perfect. It's so good. And I love how, like, with all how the scene is set, Koyomi is still kind of like, oh, hey there, what up? And he's like, oh, I'm just chilling there. I'm like, oh, is this the residence of one Kanbaru? It's like, oh, yeah, I guess she lives here. But it's we'll get to it.
Oh no!
But it's so much fun.
You got to remember though. He doesn't say at the first. He doesn't say Kanbaru.
He doesn't say
Kanbaru.
Kanbaru.
He says no. He says child of Gaien, which Gaien is is Kaworu's actual mother
Yeah.
who is dead.
And it's like, okay, that's a weird place to meet someone, but sure. And they're like chatting a bit, and he's like, okay. And then he just moves on, and Aragi is like commenting to himself, well, that is a strange person, but I think I'm glad I didn't like get involved with him. Haha.
Yeah, again, foreshadowing, because nothing happens in Monogatari without a reason.
Or just because Nisio Isin likes to fucking self-indulge and fuck around. That's why.
Yeah, I know, right? But no, so the first person that Hitagi meets, or I mean that Koyomi meets after this is Hitagi. I want to say though, when he actually sees her and they like look at each other, and she immediately ducks out an alley to avoid him.
It's so good. Like,
it's so good. She's like, why the fuck were you not studying? Do you not care anymore? Do you not love me?
And it's amazing. I love that humor. It's so good.
Also that great Akira reference, right? By the way.
I know, right? That piece of animation, that Akira cut is so good with him sliding with the bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
Again, wonderful animation all around. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
But
no. So go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
And then Itagi starts interrogating. Well, why aren't you studying today? And then I love that cut of like she's like, well, you've been, and then it cuts to her eyes, and she just blinks, and it passes, and in her pupil you see each of the girls that he saw today. It's like, oh, you've seen 6 girls today, huh? Big psycho energy.
No, he saw 7 because he saw Kaiki because he's best girl.
Oh God.
Now, yeah, and then so when that happens though, and he mentions to her about Kaiki, like immediately she regresses back to her past behavior, and that's when you flash to the events of episode 1.
Yeah, and and he finds himself tied up, and he's like, why? And then she explains why she's protecting him, but from who? Well, like from Kaiki, because Kaiki is one of the con men who tricked her when she was looking for a cure for her disease, so to speak, with the crab that haunted her in the past. And immediately you set up a really interesting dynamic between Kaiki and Senju Gahara, and it's fucking great. Oh,
it's almost like you want to know more about it as a viewer, huh?
Yeah, it's awesome because now you're like, oh wow, because you know Senjugar and you already love her as a character, and then it's how you bring to the whole sort of status quo of the show, this like new character Kaiki, which you've seen little of, but you already have this massive impression of because he is so bigger than life and so interesting and fascinating. It's awesome because it changes everything to some extent. And then she tells, yeah, he tricked me. He is a con man, and you should. And that's why I'm capturing you here, because I need to protect you from him. And then he gets a call from was it Tsuki, right?
No, well, yeah, I think originally it was either Karen or Tsukiki that actually tries to call him, but he can't get to his phone because he's tied up.
Mm-hmm.
I also love that scene where Hitagi's trying to get the phone out of his pocket, and she's very clearly groping his crotch.
Oh my God. Also, it's just, I almost forgot to mention, but yeah, just like we use the word regresses because she does. The moment Kaiki enters the picture, she sort of even more regresses to that psycho tsundere like character she was back in Bake. I mean, she literally captures and arrests Aragi and just traps him in the old cram school.
Yeah, I also find it funny that after all this happens, right, he gets another call, and Hitagi actually answers the phone instead, and she's like, all of a sudden all the tsundere goes away, and she's like, no, don't do that, no, I don't want that.
Oh, I love that so much.
No.
And
okay,
he's like, well, who called you on the phone? She's like, Hanakawa. It's like, oh,
it was
and
Hanakawa.
By the way, we still haven't seen Hanakawa in person for the entire for these first few episodes. And then he's like,
no, we haven't, and we haven't gotten an explanation as to why she canceled the studying with Koyomi, by the way.
Which we'll get to soon. But I love that exchange. I was like, wait, what happened with Hanakawa? She was like, she told me to let you go, and he's like, why are you so worried? And Itagi answers, well, because she threatened that she'll take you away from me, or something along the lines.
But yeah, so it's also worth mentioning that Koyomi is actually able to break out of the chains himself.
Oh yeah, because the moment his sister's calling, he'll break out of anywhere.
There's a part of me that's like, did Shinobu do that?
I mean, there's a good chance. I think they might have talked about it, but yeah, there's a good chance.
That's also something we haven't talked about it yet.
Because we're not there yet, my dude. We're getting there. We're getting there.
No, I was just gonna say, like, this is the first part of Monogatari where we actually get to hear Shinobu speak,
which is happening in a scene that's coming up real soon, and it's probably one of the most important scenes in the series.
It's certainly one of, if not the most important. But yeah, so after this happens, where they had the call with Hanakawa, Koyomi goes back home, and he meets. Well, he sees that Hanakawa is actually there with the Fire Sisters,
and she cut her hair.
And she did. Yeah, that's like you said. It's the first time we've seen her since. We've heard her, but we haven't seen her since the end of Bake. And like, yeah, she's cut almost all of her hair off. She's got very short hair and looking sexy as fuck, might I add.
My guy, she looks awesome, and I love that she sort of did that as to show that she has matured from the events of Bake. She grown up. She moved past, but. Did she?
It is the first instance of several we will see of what I have come to call the Nisio Isin haircut.
Very, very true. Very true.
It just seems like that Nisio Isin uses like hair, especially cutting hair, as a sign that a character has changed.
But did she? Because again, we're in Nisemonogatari where a lot of people are kind of fakes, and while she may be trying to grow past her. And the events that happen in Bake, there's a good chance that she didn't really. And
yes,
now she's aiding the Fire Sisters, pretty much.
Yes, so one of the things we find out from this is that Kaiki, being the con man that he is, has set up sort of a, I guess we'll call it a racket, in the town that they live in, and he's trying to essentially swindle money out of middle schoolers, of which both of his little sisters are both middle schoolers.
And also, he sold some of the charms that led to the events of Nadeko's encounter with the snake spirit in Bake. Which is also an interesting thing to like tie around to that arc, it's great. I love it.
Yes, and not only that, I mean, he's also fucking with other middle schoolers at that particular school that both Nadeko and the Fire Sisters go to.
Yeah.
But yeah, you also find out that one of the people that was infected by Kaiki, I don't know what the proper term is.
Swindled?
Conned by Kaiki was Karen.
Pretty much, because thanks to Hanakawa, Hanakawa aids the Fire Sisters and helps Karen track down Kaiki to face him and see why the fuck he's selling all these charms to and like just conning these kids, because what the fuck, dude.
I love that showdown, that verbal showdown between Karen and Kaiki, because it just goes to show just how naive her sense of justice is. Like, which makes sense. She's a young character, so she should be naive.
And also how she views Kaiki, because I love the setting of that showdown. It's like in this very ominous room again, and he's like sitting there with all these candles, and he's very much a bad guy, sort of. That's the portrait that Karen is drawing of him. And he's like, hey, what are you doing here? And she's like, yeah, I'm coming to stop you. He's like, how are you going to stop me? She's like, with my fists. And, very childlike. And and then he goes on this awesome spiel about money and how he loves money and how money turns the world around. And that conversation is amazing.
It just goes to show you what his true motivations are. It's not to help people. It's not even really to con people. He just wants to make money, and he just figured out an easy way to make money is to con people.
And she's very much against that, because she's like, no, you're like you are hurting people. And he's like, all I do is offer service, and people decide to buy my service or not, and I make money off of it. And he's like trying to very much like tell her that she's like foolish for like seeing this as an evil thing, right? It's like very simply a business that is doing. And
he also essentially asked the question, like, if someone voluntarily gives him money knowing that he's a con man, is that really a bad thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that whole showdown is great. And it ends up in him just kind of just going, and he's like, well, boom, you're down. And somehow he's sort of like infected with this quote-unquote apparition. That we don't know.
Yeah, well, no, it's also funny because one of the things he says is that he clearly doesn't believe in oddities, yet he still uses them.
How do they put it? I fucking love the writing of the show. They put it in the way of he doesn't believe in oddities. He knows people that believe in oddities and uses that against them. And it's so quintessential Kaiki. It's perfect. I love it. I love it so much because he doesn't use anything really supernatural. He's just a guy.
And he also sows the seeds for something else that's said multiple times, not just in this part, but you'll hear it later on too. It's like he asked Karen the question directly, like, what do you think is more real, the real thing or the fake that tries to be real?
Yeah, and it's great. I love that.
It's so good.
It comes back because that idea of fakeness. Because again, throughout the arc, Araki is like criticizing his sisters for like they are not true justice. They're fake justice. They're childish justice, very naive justice. And then and you see that when Karen approaches Kaki, because she approaches him very like she's a kid, and she approaches him as a kid. But yeah, then Kaki neutralizes her, and now we're back at Aragi's place and talking to Hanakawa, and like her telling him about all these events we just talked about.
Yeah, and yeah, so you find out that Karen got inflicted with the fire wreath bee, I think it's called.
Hornet.
Yeah, and then one of the things that Koyomi tries to do with this is he actually asks Shinobu directly, like, is there a way for me to like transfer this?
By the way, sorry to cut you off. That's the major scene. He goes to shower, and then Shinobu just appears from his shadow and starts talking to him, which is like when we like side note, when you and I debated about like how we should like do this watch order. One of the reasons I at first sort of wanted to watch Kizu after Bake and before Nisei is because that gives quite a lot of context to this whole conversation. This is a big conversation between the two, right? This is like first time they talk and discuss everything they experienced so far and what the relationship is like moving forward, which again is like really fascinating. There's a lot to talk about in that conversation, you know?
Yeah, it's also the first mention of Guillotine Cutter, who is a character that appears in
Kizu. That's right.
Kizu.
And it's a wonderful conversation. I love that
it is
how they don't hate each other, but they can't forgive each other for things that happen.
One of the things that's definitely laid out in this conversation between the two of them is what exactly the terms of their like relationship is.
Very much so.
They're definitely not friends. They're certainly not lovers, but I think they both realize that they need each other as a part of a whole now.
And they're sort of stuck
at
with
least at
each
this
other.
point. Yeah. For now, they're both stuck with each other.
But they're willing to move on with their relationship and like be with each other to some extent. And it's a wonderful scene. Also, a lot of really cool animation between the two, just like talking with and showering, because that's that, I guess. A lot of fan service.
Yeah, for sure. So shall we talk about the actual culmination of this particular story arc and how both Hitagi and Koyomi face Kaiki?
Yes, because this is I think the best scene in this season, maybe.
It's certainly up there.
It's
Maybe not the
amazing.
most remembered because we'll get to that in a second. But
Hmm.
yeah. So one of the things I like about this is they almost set it up as a fight, because one of the things that happens is Hitagi goes into somewhat greater detail than she's ever gone before, talking about her past with Koyomi, because it's one of the things like, yeah, he knows a little bit about it, but she's never gone into detail, because you can obviously tell it's very painful for her
Hmm. For
talking
sure.
about what happened. Um,
Even after like
and
the
so
conversation, it was so painful for her. Like I'm jumping just a bit ahead, but she mentions it was so painful that she even said there's a good chance that maybe even someone else would have saved me instead of you. I would have fallen in love with them instead of you. You know, it was like she
yeah,
was in such a dark place.
yeah, for sure. Um, but yeah, she also reveals that Kaiki was the first con man that conned her family, and she also reveals that, like, it was implied in Bakemonogatari that all the interactions with the con men were what actually led to her parents' divorce. But then she admits that no, I'm pretty sure my parents were on the way to divorce even before all this stuff happened,
Yeah.
because they clearly weren't in love with each other anymore.
Hmm. It's a rough conversation for her.
You can tell that this is really painful for her to talk about, and it also goes to show just how much trust she's gained in Koyomi, that she's opening herself up like this to him, because I feel like that she wouldn't do this to just anybody, even though obviously some time has passed and she's had some time, at least internally, to kind of deal with the trauma. I feel like the only reason she's telling all of this to Koyomi is to, like, show him how much that she trusts him.
Yeah. And she very much needs that support, and he gives it to her because when they face Kaiki, he very much just doesn't hold back. He's like, I love that how he like talks about Hitagi, and he's like, man, you've changed as well. You used to be something else, but now you're fake as fuck. He's like, he sees her as more fake than she ever was, because she's not. It's like. I still trying to understand like what he was saying, like what he was trying to say specifically, but I think like he was trying to get at that she is putting up a front, and maybe for the sake of Araragi, but it's still a front. It's still something fake, even though we know that
Yeah.
she is trying to grow and she is trying to get better.
And I think part of that is because that she's never, at least yet, tried to directly face her past. And it's
Hmm.
one thing that with Kaiki's reappearance that she's going to have to do.
Yeah, it's like it's step by step. I mean, she faced the crab back in Bake, and now she's facing Kaiki, which was also maybe just as much as an influence on the events that happened in her past to some extent. And
And
that
there's a phrase that Koyomi uses, and I really wish I'd written it down because it's so wonderful, about why he loves her. Um, I really wish I'd written it down because it was such a great line.
you can paraphrase
God,
it if you want.
now I'm upset. No, I'm gonna go. Give me just 1 second because I gotta find this. Hold on.
It's a good. In the meantime, I'll talk a bit about it's. I love also how it's they approach that scene because they go onto this like park or whatever, and then just all of these just crows hanging around and just very menacingly like sitting there. And I love how that scene, like this scene, sort of finally unravels Kaiki's character as just a guy. You know, he's just a guy who likes to make money, and throughout all the scenes in the season, whenever he shows up, he is very much portrayed as a villain, as a bad guy. He's evil, right? Like the sisters talk about evil, and he might not be a good person, but he's not evil. He's a dude, and he says it. It's like I just came here to make money. I'm not looking for a fight. If you want, I can go now. I can leave town, and again that goes back into theme of fake because sort of the Fire Sisters like sort of project that sense of that evil onto Kaiki, and it's fake because he is a fake himself, right? Again, he doesn't believe in the supernatural. He uses people who believe in the supernatural, and it's great. It goes back to the theme. That's why I think like that idea, that whole theme of something being fake is really fascinating. There's a lot to dig into because this season digs into it so much. Because again,
I finally found it.
Oh, you found the quote? Go for it.
I did. So the quote, this is right before they leave to go face Kaiki, is Koyomi says to Hitagi, "Sometimes I don't know why I'm dating you, but I love you so much I don't need a reason."
Aww,
oh my god.
That's a great line.
I hope I get to use that on someone one day.
Write it down. But yeah, and that whole spiel of him just being a guy and him seeing Hitagi as fake, and then I love how it comes back around to him pointing out that Araragi might be the only person in there who is not fake, because for all the shit we give Araragi, he's very much a very justice-driven guy to a fault to some extent. He jumps at danger for the sake of other people, and I love how Kaki just observes that and says that. He is a fake himself, but he knows that Araragi for a fact is not a fake at all. He is a very, in a sense, justice to some extent. And it's so good. It's so good. Kaki is such a great character. He lifts every scene that he is in.
He owns, and like he just owns he chews up scenery every scene that he's in. Like, no doubt. It's one of the things that makes him a great character, just in general, is just how well written he is, and a lot of it goes into his dialogue. Like, his dialogue is so meticulously like sculpted. It is literally like a sculpture watching him talk.
Yeah, very much so. And again, it plays so well on the impression that we had of him so far, but just laying it all out there. It's like, I'm just a guy. I'm here to make money. Yeah, I can leave. I'm not looking for a fight. That would be a waste of time for you and I. I'll just leave.
Yeah. And on the like topic of being fake as well, like even the Fire Wreath B thing was kind of a false starter as well, because Kaiki reveals to them like, yeah, I know it looks like it's bad, but give it a couple days, it'll be fine.
Yeah, it's like, this is just hypnosis. That's it. And I love it.
It is. It's literally it is. It is literally just like a form of hypnosis. It's temporary, and that he was already leaving the city anyway, so them coming to face him was like, didn't even matter.
But it didn't matter to Araragi and Hitagi. It was for her such a crucial moment to face him. It's like, hey, just so you know, I'm in a much better place now. I have someone who loves me, and I love him. So fuck you.
Also, before we move on to Tsukihi Phoenix, I just want to talk about like that final scene after they face Kaiki, where it's just where Kaiki leaves and it's just Koyomi and Hitagi talking, and Hitagi throws him up against the fence, and she says, "Be gentle with me tonight." They fucking banged.
You know it, dude. Also,
they fucking banged.
Also, holy shit, we haven't even talked about his fight with Karen, which is, by the way, excellent animation. But it's like, there's so much to talk about in this arc, because again, it's like he fights Karen and she beats the shit out of him. But by the end of it, they have this sort of this bonding moment between the two. And he's like, oh yeah, I know you and Tsuki are very much childish. You are kids and you are fake, but I am proud of you for trying so hard. And it's, again, goes back to, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. I mean, it's the sibling rivalry thing. It's played so well with these three characters.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like, he acts like he hates them, but deep down he cares a lot about them.
And again, he's like super, and he's proud of them for trying to be so just and caring so much about them, because he is very much a just person, you know?
All right, so moving on. I feel like we've given Karen B enough. We've talked about it for like 30 minutes, and we're coming up on the 50-minute mark here. So let's talk about Tsukihi Phoenix.
Best OP?
It is certainly my favorite OP in the Monogatari series, Platinum Disco, sung by Ikuchi, who is the voice actor for Tsukihi Araragi. It is, like I said, my favorite OP in the entire Monogatari series, at least thus far. We'll see if we get any more Monogatari anime. Wink, wink, nudge,
Wink,
nudge,
wink.
Shaft.
Please, Shaft, please. Yeah, so
Yeah,
Tsuki
it
arc,
is my favorite OP.
it's an incredible OP. I love the animation. I love the song, the use of this like sort of class. I don't remember the name of the instrument, but it's like classical string sort of instrument they use in it. I really like the use of that, and it's super trippy. Yeah, and I love specifically the part at the end where you see Tsuki dancing, and you see how she and it like rotates between different versions of her, with different hairstyles and different get-ups, and it's great. It's an awesome OP.
Almost as like she's trying to present herself and doesn't know how, like a fake.
So, just like in Karen B, the first 2 episodes involve a lot of shit-talking and stupid things, but we can't move on without talking about the most stupidest of things.
Yeah, we can't. So one of the things, even if you've never watched the Monogatari series and know nothing about it, one thing you probably do know about it is the toothbrush scene. So it takes place in episode. It is the first episode of Tsukihi Phoenix. It takes up almost the entirety of episode 8 of Nisemonogatari. And it is what it is. I feel like I don't really need to talk about it too much because at this point it's so iconic. There is one question I have for you though, because it's something that I've asked myself a lot about this scene.
Okay.
Does this actually happen, or is it something that Koyomi is just going through in his head?
Yes, it does.
Because I think it's something that's going on only in Koyomi's head.
It does happen. I have a feeling because in the previous arc, Koyomi cures Karen by kissing her because of course, and he drains the sickness that she had because he's a vampire, and from then on she becomes sort of attracted to him. Then she shows up in this fucking weird horny getup, and I think it does happen because they literally, when the scene happens and by the end of it when Tsuki shows up and she like stops it, like the fact that she as a third party notices was weird as fuck. Like it happens, but then I love how they like go back at it the moment it ends. I think it's very much happens.
If this actually happens, you do know what this implies, right? Right? That he has sex with his sister.
No, he didn't have sex. He had toothbrush sex with his sister.
Okay. Listen, as horny as they were getting, like they were close to. He was so close to ripping her shirt off. Let's be honest.
It's so fucking. This is the third time I'm watching the series, and watching again this scene, I was like, damn, this is.
It's and it's all I hesitate to say foreshadowed, but it's almost like referenced before the fact in a few episodes prior. It's actually after they have their big fight, and Koyomi's like, be careful not to fall in love with me. And he's like, no, Karen says I have to be careful not to fall in love, and Koyomi's like, well, that would be incestuous.
Moving on. Also, like, after that scene, they are very close. I mean, that whole scene of, like, her carrying on her back, it's, like, very close. That's the only word I could use. And then she cuts her hair, because, of course.
I still feel like that the ending of the toothbrush scene implies that they went a little further than just toothbrush.
No penetration.
I'm not saying that she could have sucked his dick or given him a hand job, but something happened. Come on.
Anyway,
moving on. So, a couple of characters are introduced for the first time in this arc. The first one is Yosuru Kagenui.
The weird lady.
Also, I mentioned it before with Kaiki, with the importance of character introductions. Another really good character introduction, because immediately upon her introduction, you kind of want to know more about her because she acts so weird.
Also, great design. I mean, again, Kaiki's design as well. Just saying, pointing out an amazing design, but also Kagenu's design, really dope.
Yes. But yeah, this is also the very first appearance of the term Devil Boy in reference to Koyomi. That's a phrase that you will hear many, many more times throughout the Monogatari series in reference to Koyomi. Something else in the whole conversation that they have. So one of the things that she wants to know is where the cram school is that Mimeo Shino was at.
Probably
Of
because
course,
she's looking for Meme Oshino.
you probably you might have something there, but something throughout the entire conversation I realized, especially the first time I watched it, and even when she's leaving, is that she never touches the ground.
That's right.
Like, she jumps from thing to thing trying to get everywhere.
By the end of the arc, we even see her just like standing on top of Ornonoki, which we'll talk about really quick. And yeah, she we never see her touch the ground. Maybe it's a curse that is cast on her. Maybe it's never.
I guess we'll have to find out. And also the whole thing with this is that Koyomi is taking Karen to meet Kambaru.
Oh yeah, because the whole shtick with the toothbrush scene is because they're betting if she can survive 5 minutes, it'll introduce her to Kambaru. Because of course, somehow it makes sense in context.
Sure, we'll go with that. But yeah, so Karen meets Kambaru. That won't have any negative repercussions later, will it?
I know, right?
And then immediately after this, we get introduced to, I know it's a lot of people's least favorite Monogatari character. She's actually one of my favorite Monogatari characters. Yotsuki Ononoki is introduced for the very first time. First of all, I love her design. I love her design so damn much.
Her design is awesome.
Especially the dress that she wears. Like, there's something about it that just pops. I don't know what it is. It just works for me.
It's somehow so different from every other character in the show. But it still feels like a part of it. It's really
I know, and I know a lot of people out there don't like her because she's so flat, like, as a character. She's such a blank slate type of character. But I don't know, there's something about her that I absolutely love. I love her way of speaking, especially her little, like, phrases that she has, which one of them is introduced in this. It's I said with the posed look. I didn't write that down, but I should have.
My favorite like sort of catchphrase of her is how she addresses the Koyomi. She calls him Oni-chan, which is a play on Oni, which is a devil, and Oni-chan, which is a brother. That's one of my favorite things about Ononoki, that old Oni-chan. It's great.
One of the things that, I mean, she's, and also Kagenui mentioned that, hey, if you see this character that looks like Ononoki, tell her the same thing you tell me. And of course, there she is. And he tells Ononoki how to get to the cram school. And before Ononoki leaves, she acknowledges Hachikuji, who's standing right next to him. Now, previously, the only person who's been able to see Hachikuji has been Koyomi.
And Hanakawa.
So immediately you're like, what?
What is she?
What is this? What is this? Also, she seems to know things about Koyomi and some of his friends already. Mm-hmm. It's like, so immediately, like, how the fuck does she know this? What?
Yeah, a lot of question raised, and I love how that's again dispersed between the bullshitted scenes. Like, yeah, you have that between him and Karen just taking a walk, talking about how uncomfortable it is to sit on top of one another when you're walking, with something stupid like that, and him meeting the meeting between Karen and Kambaru, and again, not a whole lot of direction of what this arc is about until you get to the next episode 10, which is the one before the penultimate. Yeah. So
the episode starts with Shinobu being Shinobu and just wanting donuts.
I love it.
But and Koyomi agrees. All right, I'll get you your damn donut. Shut the fuck up. And then on the way out, he talks to Tsukihi, who he realizes that there's some scars that she's had for a long time that are just gone. Like, they're just completely gone. And he's like, well, what the fuck? I also like how the rapey way he goes about checking out the scars on her body by fucking throwing her against the floor and forcibly undressing her. Never changed.
That's our argument for you.
But anyway, after this scene, I also like how he kind of drops in. It's like, oh, well, whatever. Afterwards, he goes to Mr. Donut, who, when I first watched this, I thought was a fake thing. Turns out Mr. Donut is a very real, donut thing and coffee shop chain in Japan. And there's one in the United States, which I really want to go to.
Just go there.
I believe it's in Illinois.
Kaiki. Speaking of, I'm saying go there cosplay as Kaiki.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking
Of Kaiki, though, while they're there, they see Kaiki at the donut shop and has one of the best spit takes I've ever seen. When Shinobu's like, "Why don't you talk to that guy back there? He might know some things about those two suspicious characters you just met." And he turns around and he's like, "Ma!"
And again, absolutely love it because the previous arc just built Kaiki as this bad guy, as a villain. By the end of it, it's like, I'm just a dude, but I will go. And then Aragi's like, I wonder what's going on with my sister. And it's like this guy just sitting there eating his donuts, and I love it. It's so good. It's
yeah, but that whole conversation between them is great, and it's filled with some great dialogue. But one of the things that they do realize that Kaiki does give up is that he knows that Kagenui and Ononoki are they're essentially supernatural hunters, and they specialize in immortal beings. Ghostbusters. Yeah, but they particularly specialize in immortal beings. So Koyomi already has this thought going in his mind, like, are me and Shinobu at risk? Because technically we're both vampires.
And they go back to their place, and they see their Kagenui and Ononoki, like, for some reason trying to open the door. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And it escalates very quickly.
Yeah, it does escalate very quickly because Tsukihi opens the door and immediately gets what seemingly gets crushed by Ononoki. Also, this is the first instance we hear of unlimited rulebook.
Unlimited rulebook. And that animation, it looks so good. When she fucking, like, her finger gets big and she just, like,
beats the shit out of things.
And half of Tsukihi is gone. It's like, what the fuck?
And Koyomi just immediately loses his shit and tries to attack her. But then it's pointed at him like, no, look, her body, it's fine. She's fine. Look.
Plot twist, she is an apparition all along.
Yeah, the whole time she's been an apparition. In the theme, again, of being fake, it turns out that Tsukihi herself is actually a phoenix that assumes the identity of a human child every time that it dies.
And
wow, what a revelation.
I mean, yeah. And I love that whole, like, how Aragi comes to terms with it. It's like, nah, she still, like, is my sister, and I love her even if she is a fake. She has been a part of my life this whole time. Like, he has no, like, moment of doubt about it. It's like, nah, she's my sister, I love it. Fuck you guys. So, in order to protect her, he and Shinobu go to fight Ononoki and Kagenui, and we get one of the best designs of this entire show. Fight me.
Teenage Shinobu.
It's so good.
I've always had the question of where does the jacket come from that she wears, but I'm not gonna question it.
Yeah, it just pops out on. It's like I won't fight it.
There are two god tier character designs in this entire series. One of them is Teenage Shinobu. Another one is a character design that we'll see in season 2. I'll get to that when we get to it.
But yeah,
also something that we learned before this fight even happens, though, is we learn how Kagenui, Meme, and Kaiki all are connected, and the fact that they were all classmates in college, and they were all members of the occult research club, I think it was called,
something like that. And I love how Kagenui presents.
I forget the exact. They give it an exact name, but I've forgotten what it is.
And I love how Kagenui presents their dynamic as Oshino being the neutral one between the two. When they talk about things being fake or not, Kagenui being like very much no, either you are real or you're fake. Like, be very black or white. And then Kaiki is like, well, sometimes when something is fake, it believes it so much it becomes something real. Just like how Tsukihi is an apparition. That her whole thing is that she's not really a person. She's very much a fake, but she believes it so much. She's not really aware she's an apparition. So she becomes the real thing, you know? That whole question in itself is, again, really interesting.
It's like that thing that Kaigi says, like, is the real thing worth more, or is the fake that tries really, really hard to be indistinguishable from the real thing worth more? Which
Yeah.
I love relating it back to that, because Kaiki's kind of right in that regard, that like in its attempts to be real, the fake that tries the hardest to be real is probably worth more because as more effort was put into it being real.
Fake it till you make it. It's a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I also just in general I love that reveal because it opens up a lot of storytelling potential going forward, especially when these characters do reappear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also we haven't gotten it yet, but my God, would I love to see a story of these three characters when they were in college?
I
Really
really
would.
wish we'll get a story like that because there's so much to dig into. I mean, we don't see them together, and I'd love to see how that dynamic plays out in front of me. You know.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but anyway,
we get a fight.
the fight happens. The fight happens, and let's be honest, it's a bit of a one-sided fight between Kagenui and Koyomi. Like he gets his
she
ass
beats the
beat.
shit out of him.
And then I love the reveal, like when they go downstairs and you see the result of Shinobu and Ononoki's just pinned to the wall with X's on her eyes, like, oh,
And
this happened.
And that's after
Well, shit.
that's after Onoki's talking shit. It's like, oh, Shinobu is just an old hag. She is nothing, and then she beats the shit out of her, so it's fine.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I also love that line that Koyomi has. I'll never give up on my little sister, no matter what kind of creature she is. Just echoing what he's already said before.
Yeah, what a good dude. What a good dude.
Yeah, and then they kind of just pack up and leave. Kagenui pulls Ononoki off the wall, throws her over her back, and is like, "All right, we're leaving now."
Because pretty much he says something on the lines of, "Well, you're taking responsibility for your sister, and you're gonna watch over her, even though she is an apparition." Right.
Yeah, pretty much. But they kind of leave with the implication that like if we figure out that you can't control this, we're gonna come back and kill her.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay.
Well,
but then that's kind of how this ends. I mean, we go back and we definitely get a resolution between both Koyomi and Tsukiki. We also kind of get a verification of the new relationship Koyomi has with Karen. You know how well they get along with each other.
Yep.
They're talking back and forth. I also like that Koyomi's like, yeah, I've been dating someone and I want you to meet her.
Yeah, he tells that to Tsuki, and she loses it. She's like, what?
Which again is another thing of Koyomi's growth. Like he's starting to trust his sisters more, and he's like, I've got this person who's really special to me, and I think you guys definitely need to meet her.
And then we cut to him walking on the beach, going to see Hitagi. And
the after credits scene is him he meets Hitagi on the beach, and then it's just fade to black. That's the end of
But
Nisei.
with a new haircut.
With a new haircut, and that's definitely being teased for something that's coming again.
So yeah, Nisei is wild, and it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, so obviously with the title of this being Nisemonogatari, fake story, how do you think it actually handles that theme of fakeness? Not just with people, but with situations.
Super well. I mean, the fact that we've been talking about this for over an hour now, we've spent a lot of time just talking about that theme alone. It works so well because, again, it's on its own, it's such an interesting idea. And I've had so many conversations with you and other friends of mine who watch this show that there's so much to dig into because you see that in all of the characters. It sort of touches almost all the characters in the show. Like the idea of what is fake, what is not. Like we talked about in Bake, how some of the characters are to some extent like these archetypes of a tsundere and this like childhood friend and the shy girl and as the show went along, you see how this is just a front for something that's beneath that, something much more flawed, that there's a reason why they are the way they are. And another element of that is how they are being fake. So again, whether it's the sisters being really fake about their justice and how it's really childish, how everyone's projecting something onto Kaiki, which is fake, because he is not the villain that he is. Even though he is a piece of shit, he's not evil, right? Just so well, it's so cohesively written, you know? And I love that. It's great. It's so well executed.
It is. I cannot disagree with anything you just said. I think it handles that theme of fakeness very, very well, and it runs throughout. And it's one of those things like, how do you overcome the fakeness? Well, you got to admit it first.
Yep, very much so. It's really interesting to talk about. Every now and then I'll find myself talking about Nisei quite a lot because of that theme.
This is probably my second favorite part of the Monogatari series as a whole.
And we'll get to your favorite part real soon. But I think
we will.
But
that's going to be it.
Yeah,
that's going to be it for Nisei, though.
This is it for Nisei. It's wild.
I think you and I have kind of decided how we want the rest of this Spoilercast series to go. So the next part of our Spoilercast series is going to be Nekomonogatari Black. Yes, I know it's only 4 episodes, but it's going to get its own Spoilercast.
Expect a quickie about that part.
Yeah, that probably won't be anywhere near as long as these last 2 have been. And then we're going to probably end up splitting second season into 2 parts, just because second season is as long as it is. We definitely don't want to have like a 2.5-hour spoiler cast. So.
No. I mean, we could do it, but let's not for the sake of John.
Yes, for John's sake, we will not be doing that. But yeah, and then the rest of it's just going to go in broadcast order. So definitely look forward to that. As I said, the next part of our Spoilercast series will be Nekomonogatari Black. So with that, thank you all so much for dropping in to listen to us. Check the description below to find links to Anime Club After Dark on Twitch, on social media, and on Discord. Check out our merch store as well. Any purchases you make there do really help us out. With that, I've been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, Natai.
Please don't brush your sister's teeth like that. Don't.
I mean, if you absolutely have to, don't grope her titties.
Oh my god. Unless we're past the horniest part, I think. Right?
Well...